All right, guys, we are back. I had a lot of technical issues today. I'm going to go ahead and start reading. And what we're going to try to read today is chapter one, Enigma of The Ultimate Coach. I think the alternate title is The Book of Being. And it's by Amy Hardison and Alan Thompson. So, as per Steve's instructions, the subject of the book is Steve Hardison, and actually, the subject of the book is us. So the book is not about him; the book is about you. And the point that he's trying to get to us, to get through to us, is to read the book about us, um, and see from both the perspective of him and his life and the people that he has worked with and the lives he's affected. Okay, so to look into where where we are great and where we are capable and we where we are capable of lovingly serving other people, capable of seeing our innocence, but at the same time capable of loving those parts of ourselves that we may harshly judge, right? So if we looked at ourselves the same way we look at our 2-year-old child, we don't judge them for yelling and screaming, right? But when there's a certain point when at a certain age, um, that behavior becomes, from a perspective, not acceptable, right? Even some behaviors that actually may be useful um, or may be good or may be valuable, right? So we both we inherit and we create and we filter out um, stimuli and things we pick up from the world, and we internalize them, and then we also judge ourselves, and that becomes a big weight of harsh critical self judgments that may have kept us safe at a certain time but no longer serve us. Okay, so I'm going to go ahead and start reading, and again he requests that we read to get the most out of it, the back cover, and then the forward, and then start reading. Okay, so I'm going to go ahead and start. Dear potential reader, as you may have noticed, there are no testimonials on the back cover of this book imploring you to read it. I vetoed that. The only testimonial I am interested in is the one you will have from reading and experiencing this book. Please do not read this book about me. Read this book about you. Read it about being. As you read, ask yourself, who would I need to be to be a more loving person? Who would I need to be a more effective parent? Who would I need to be to create a level of confidence that is remarkable? Who would I need to be at peace with who I am? Who would I need to be fully in love with myself and my life? Who would I need to be to live the most extraordinary life I can live? I promise you that if you read this book with the intention of expanding your state of being, you will do exactly that. Your experience will be remarkable. Who you are being is everything. Loving you, be blessed, be you, Steve Hardison. And now we're going to go forward to the, I think he calls it, what does he call it? Before you begin. Before you begin, and you can see I've written notes here, right? Before you begin, Steve Hardison, I never wanted to write a book, and I haven't. I never wanted to have a book written about me, but here it is. This book is a gift from my wife, Amy, who wrote it, and my friend, Alan D. Thompson, who conducted the research and interviews on which it is based. And it's not just a gift to me, but to you too. And now you're reading it. So, with your permission, I'll give you some suggestions on how to read it. You see, this isn't an ordinary book. It's not it's not simply a biography. It's not a self-help book. It's not a literary classic. It's definitely not a book about how to coach. In fact, it's not a book about doing anything. It's a book about being, and it's a book about you. To access this book, ask yourself these questions as you read. Who am I being as a partner, parent, or friend? Who am I being as a leader? Who am I being as a member of my community? Who would I need to be to have miracles show up in my daily life? Who would I need to be to create value in the work that I do? Who would I need to be to generate a life of abundance? Who would I need to be to alter my relationship with fear? Who would I need to be at peace with my past? Who would I need to step powerfully into my future? Who would I need to be present as a way of being? Who would I need to live the most extraordinary life I can live? Who would I need to be to know that my life makes a difference? Who would I need to be fully in love with myself and my life? Who would I need to improve my relationships with the most important people in my life? Who would I need to be to read The Ultimate Coach and have a personal breakthrough in being wonderful me? The best part about this book about you, is that it is endless. The story goes on, and it's written by your being. Loving you, be blessed, be you. Steve Hardison. All right, so we read the foreword. So we are now reading chapter 1, Enigma. The employee sitting at the conference table was despondent. He had, in his own words, a long history of failure, addiction, bankruptcy, and real chaos. But those were old issues, the resolved ones that only rumbled occasionally. Currently, his tectonic plates were in motion. His wife had just been institutionalized. He was raising 4 kids by himself. He was in debt to Timex, the company he worked for. It would be so easy to be swallowed up. If you could do anything, asked Steve Hardison, the coach who had recently been engaged to work with the executives at Timex, what would you do? I would write books and I would speak. Have you done either of those things? The man shook his head. You do realize that you work for a company that sells speaking and training? Asked Hardison. I asked the company president if I could speak, and he said no. Hardison was quick to respond. One guy tells you that you can't speak and you quit. You have to do better than that. Look, I'll arrange for the room and you can speak next Thursday night. On Thursday night, Steve Chandler showed up to speak. Steve Hardison showed up to listen. He was the entire audience. The next Thursday night, 10 people came to listen to Chandler. One of the 10 was Patrick Provost, a friend of Hardison's. Patrick recalls, it was grim and dull. By his own admission, Steve Chandler was a terrible speaker with crippling stage fright. He had a lot to overcome. One day, Chandler came to Timex after attending one of Landmark's personal development seminars. It was about creating your future. He had bounce in his step. When he saw Hardison, he announced, I have a 5-year plan for becoming a public speaker. If that's what you want, that's fine, said Hardison. His words poked holes in Chandler's exuberance. Is there something wrong? Asked Chandler. You could take 5 years to become a public speaker if you want, or you could do it in 5 months. I'm not you, Chandler said. I have to take a public speaking course. I have to get over my stage fright. That takes time. That's all in your head. It all seemed so logical, so real to Chandler. Did Hardison always bend reality? Would it be as pliable for Chandler? Chandler was willing to find out. Chandler passed out flyers to the businesses near Timex, inviting people to attend a free talk on achieving goals. He made up a booklet with some of his favorite quotes from Stephen Covey, Napoleon Hill, and Tony Robbins. Chandler would build a discussion on the quotes, which was much less terrifying than standing on his own expertise. As a single father with full custody and no money for babysitting, his kids would attend. They would be their dad's official pencil runners and his unofficial cheerleaders. To counter his stage fright, Chandler practiced his presentations whenever he could, at home, in the car, during dinner. Before his kids went to bed, he would gather them and say, I want to give you one of my talks. They groaned. Only for 10 minutes, that's all, insisted Chandler. Just as Chandler was hitting his stride, he was interrupted with, Dad, this is so boring. Count your blessings, he replied. You only get 10 minutes. Grown-ups get an hour. One day, Hardison read a booklet on fundraising that Chandler had co-written before he worked at Timex. This is amazing, he said to Chandler. Why don't you present these ideas to the whole Timex team? Chandler blanched. I could never stand in front of the whole company and speak. Of course you can, insisted Hardison. Chandler did it, but his nerves were espresso jittery. He was relieved when it was over. Chandler thought he did all right. Hardison thought he was wonderful. He asked Chandler to autograph his booklet. I thought he was mocking me, says Chandler. I felt like the kid with ALS who plays on the school football team because of the coach's compassion. The other team lets him score a touchdown out of pity and because they are way ahead. The crowd is cheering not because the kid is wonderful, but because he showed great heart. Why do you want my autograph? Asked Chandler. After all, I'm in the company, and this isn't a real book. I want you to remember this moment, replied Hardison. Something miraculous is going to occur out of what you did today. You will be a world famous speaker one day. Chandler didn't believe him. Today, Chandler is a highly sought after speaker. He is the author of over 40 books, which have been translated into 25 languages. He has created in person and online coaching schools that are in high demand. He is known throughout the world as the godfather of coaching. When he speaks and writes, he consistently acknowledges the coach who was integral in helping him become who he is today. He says things like, Hardison is known in coaching circles and business circles and personal growth circles and any circle you can think of as the ultimate coach. He coaches way beyond the normal concept of coaching. To call him a mere life coach is like calling the Beatles a garage band. Trent LaMarche kept encouraging Steve Hardison, kept encountering Steve Hardison in Steve Chandler's books. LaMarche writes, I was intrigued by this fellow Steve Chan Steve Chandler kept mentioning, this ultimate coach who coached Chandler for nearly 30 years. I was in awe of the fees he commanded and the people he coached. My main question was, what on earth does he do to warrant such respect and admiration? That question may well be in the minds of those who pick up this book. LaMarche found his answer. Slowly, as bits and pieces and stories about this man surfaced. Within these pages are bits and pieces and stories that reveal Steve Hardison. These are stories about Hardison's childhood and family of origin, the people and disciplines that shaped his thinking, and the path that led to his coaching. There are principles that are fundamental to his coaching. There are stories from people Steve has coached. These people are the warp and woof of this book. They approximate as much as possible stepping into Hardison's office and experiencing his coaching. Beyond that, there are stories of Steve Hardison, the man, stories that delight, stories that evoke a giggle or even a belly laugh, stories that baffle, and stories that astound. There are stories that leave readers inspired to live big and bold, alight with the fire of their own possibility. Perhaps we, like LaMarche, can start to understand Hardison through these stories. Or perhaps we will understand him when we read about the things that nearly crushed him. Or perhaps we will never totally understand this enigmatic force, this Tasmanian devil of passion and power. Perhaps we don't need to. Perhaps all we need is to inhale some of his energy. All right, guys, that's chapter 1. See you guys tomorrow. Take care. Bye.